Welcome to Larry the Alchemist, and welcome to another edition of Dudes Talkin' Metal. This is where I get together some of the finest dudes out there on the internet to get together with you to talk some metal. And we have someone their first time on Dudes Talking Metal, but this is not his first time at the Lair. You may know him from Sabbath Sunday, from being here at the Lair for various things, and that's Darren. So, Darren, thanks for joining us here for the first time on Dudes Talking
For having
Metal.
me.
Yep, we've had a couple people
Good to
saying
be here.
when you're gonna get Darren on the dudes, and so here he is. He's officially here. We've got our resident dude in the house, Tony. Tony's here, and
Great being here.
Butch is gonna be joining us. We're gonna be splicing him in here. He had a prior commitment, couldn't make it, but he wants to get in on this topic. So you will get to hear from Butch. We'll be splicing him into this episode. So for today's episode, we are going to be sharing with you our 10 favorite riffs from the 80s. Nothing makes a good song like a good riff. Heavy metal is all about the riffs. So we thought it would be fun. And then to narrow it down to the 80s. The 80s was the decade of heavy metal, so metal is all about the riffs. So we thought it would be fun to come up with our 10 favorite riffs. I may try in the episode to put some sound clips in a little bit later in the episode. We'll see how that goes. If you don't hear them, it's because I wasn't able to do it. So, but I think, we got most of our picks here. You're probably going to recognize some of these picks, I think. So, okay, we're going to give our 5 at a time. And Darren, what was that? Darren, this is your first time here, Dudes Talking Metal. So you get the honor of going first. Give us your first 5 picks for your favorite riffs of the 80s.
So 10 to 5. Was that what we're doing? 10 to 5 and then
Yep.
5 to 1 after that?
Yeah.
All right. Man, it was hard to narrow it down to 10. I've got about 50 of them written down because so many awesome riffs, heavy metal in the 80s. But so I guess 10 is going to be Merciful Fate, A Dangerous Meeting. I love that riff. I love the album. I mean, it's such an awesome song, and that riff, first time I heard it, it just blew me away. So I knew that was going to definitely make my top 10. Next, I have Cold Sweat by Thin Lizzy. Real strong, powerful riff off of the Thunder and Lightning album. Thought that was a great riff to include in this list. Let's see. I got Judas Priest, Heading Out to the Highway off of Point of Entry. It's a pretty awesome riff. One of my faves from the 80s. So what's that? 3. Off of Restless and Wild by Accept, I have Princess of the Dawn. It's a pretty cool riff. Awesome song. One of my favorites off of Restless and Wild. And then I've got Limelight by Rush off the Moving Pictures album. It's an awesome riff, great song. When I first got the album, I was drawn to that song. Just loved the riff. I just kept playing Limelight over and over and over again. Whole album's great. I thought it was great at the time, but Limelight I just got stuck on because of that opening riff. So I knew that was going to make my list somewhere in my top 10. So that's my first. That's my 10 to 5. That's my list so far.
Good picks.
Yeah, and there's, you think about something like Limelight, it's like as soon as he plays like that first 2 notes, or even the first note, it's like everybody just knows what it is. And that's just like one of those iconic
Very iconic. Yeah.
yeah, you just they play it and it's everybody just immediately reacts to it. And that's the great thing about metal is and hard rock that man, when you get an iconic riff like that, it is just, it can really like just it's just one of those things that you love about heavy metal, right? Is the great riffing. I mean, the melody lines and all the other stuff in it, but heavy metal is it's all about the riff in a lot of ways. If you've got a good riff, you're halfway there to a good song.
Yep.
So, okay, Tony, what do you got for your first five?
Okay, yeah, this like Darren said, this is tough because there's so many great songs out there, just great opening riffs to songs that just stick in your head, and when you hear them, you just instantly perk up. If you're somewhere, in a restaurant or sporting event, bowling alley, wherever, and this song comes on and you know it,
Yeah.
you're gonna kind of, you're gonna perk up because you know this song and you like it. So my number 10 is going to be Ozzy's I Don't Know. I mean, I had to throw some Randy Rhoads in. Great riff, just a great opening riff for a great album. And so number 9, I'm going to go with A Merciful Fate, but I'm going to go with Curse of the Pharaohs. Another just cool riff from the Melissa album. Number 8, I'm going to go with Mean Streak by Y&T. Just a great opening riff there. Really, probably one of their heaviest songs. Number 7, had to throw this one in. Rock and Roll Crazy Nights by Loudness. When you hear that riff, you know riff. The song. MZA all the way. Number 6, I got to throw some Sabbath in, and I was like, God, what Sabbath do I want to use? And I went with Voodoo because that's just a menacing riff. It's really heavy and dark. So yeah, so that's my first 5.
Nice. Yeah, this was really hard. And as you guys are saying your picks, I'm like, oh man, how did I not put them on the list? But when you're trying to narrow it down to 10, I mean, we could have easily have made this the top 50 riffs of the 80s. And I don't think I would have had a problem coming up with 50. So this was tough. I kind of went with what popped in my head right away. And I kind of wanted to a little bit of from some of the different genres that we had in the 80s. So my number 10, Tony, you same as you. Here's our first repeat is Rock and Roll Crazy Nights. That opening riff is just killer. MTV, Akira, everything. That's just an awesome riff. I'm going to stick with the kind of 80s glammy type of sound. And number 9 for me is going to be Rats, Lay It Down. That's one of those sort of finger twisting opening riffs that guitar players love to. I can play this, down, so iconic riff from the whole LA glam scene. All right, number 8 for me. I'm going to go a little more on the obscure side. Doom metal riff, All Your Sins from Pentagram. That opening riff from that song, it's this weird sort of chromatic and Victor Griffin's guitar is just tuned so low. It's like, has this super heavy sound. I had to get Victor Griffin on here just because man, his sound and so many killer riffs.
What tone?
Yeah, exactly.
John, we should just have you do all the sound bites. You're doing a good job there, man.
I sing all the parts. I actually have my guitar over there. I was thinking about playing some of these, but I was like, I didn't have time to quite learn all of them. Okay, number 7 for me. I'm going to stick with the Doom theme, and I love these guys. Had to have them on the list here somewhere. I always said that someday they'll build monuments in honor of the metal gods, and Sitting at the left hand of Tony Iommi will be a statue of Leif Edling. And one of my favorite Candlemass riffs is Well of Souls, the intro riff to Well of Souls. Do, 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 do. All right, now I got to sing them all for you now that I got started.
Yeah.
Actually, this one I can't sing. Number 6, got to put him on the list here. He's maybe the most influential guitarist of the 80s, Eddie Van Halen. So Unchained, that guitar at the beginning of
Yeah.
Unchained, da, da, do, 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 you know, Eddie tuned really low on his string there, that chugging
Awesome
sound.
riff.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
absolutely a killer riff. So all right, there's my first 5. All right, Darren, now you got to step it up and sing a couple of yours now that I got us warmed up and broke the ice.
I am not going to sing any riffs. I'm sorry to disappoint. I think you'll thank me for it. Okay, so number 5, I have Crocus Nightwolf off of the Headhunter album. I love that riff, man. That is a riff that you just want to, when you hear it, you want to crank it up. Very powerful, killer riff. Number 4, I've got Iron Maiden, 2 Minutes to Midnight. Just really hits that sweet spot. The first time I heard, when I first got Power Slave, listened to the whole album. I think the first song on side, or second song on side 1 is 2 Minutes to Midnight. And I got stuck just pulling the needle back, putting it on that, just listening to it over and over again. So that had to make my top 5. 2 Minutes to Midnight by Iron Maiden off the Power Slave album. What's that? Number 4. Number 3, I've got, let's see, I had to change a couple things up. John, you took Unchained from me. So I'm going to go with 747 Strangers in the Night by Saxon. It's one of my favorite Saxon songs. I love how I love the riff, but I love how the solo accompanies the riff, but the whole thing blends into this really cool melodic guitar riff. I love that. Just it's a perfect song. I love the riff to that. So number 2, my number 2 pick is Def Leppard, Let It Go, off the High and Dry album. When we first got MTV, I remember MTV maybe had like about 50 videos that they would just show, and they would loop them. And it could be anybody from like Asia, Pat Benatar, Iron Maiden, Saxon. Just it was whoever had a video, the Buggles, whoever had a video at that time. It didn't matter if it was new wave, if it was like pop or metal, you would just see it. There was a lot of variety. And I remember watching MTV, and all of a sudden I'd heard of Def Leppard, and I've seen their records in the record store, but this is like circa 1981, when High and Dry came out. MTV busted out Let It Go, and I was just like blown away. I love that guitar tone. The band looked cool. Of course,
Great song.
Def Leppard, new wave of British heavy metal. 1981, we were like really in the thick of the new wave of British heavy metal. So I got bit by that bug and went out, like, I think a few days later, bought High and Dry. The whole album, of course, is great. Def Leppard went on to do some pretty lame stuff afterwards, but I think definitely the first 2 albums, I'm not including like the very first EP or whatever, but first 2 full-length albums, On Through the Night, High and Dry, are great records, great heavy metal, great hard rock, however you want to classify it. Pyromania is okay, but man, High and Dry, just love that album. Well, my number 1 pick is Jealous Lover by Rainbow.
Oh, wow.
I love that riff.
Oh.
Like, kind of has a little bit, it's Blackmore, kind of has a little bit of Clapton in there. More hard rock. It's not really metal, but it just has a really cool vibe. I wish it made the cut on Difficult to Cure, but it was on the single. And I heard the song on the radio, and I got Difficult to Cure around the time it came out. I remember for Christmas I got Difficult to Cure and Iron Maiden Killers. Because I saw the video for Can't Happen Here on MTV again.
Uh-huh.
Another one of those videos that would just cycle on MTV at that particular point in time, 1981. But I'd heard Jealous Lover on the radio, and I expected it to be on Difficult to Cure, and it wasn't. So I was really disappointed. But I did find a single in my record store, so I bought it, and kind of disappointed that I couldn't listen to all the songs on one album, but at least I had the 12-inch single, Jealous Lover. I've always liked the song. Every time I hear it on the radio, sometimes it'll come on satellite radio occasionally. I get excited. Oh yeah, turn it up. Like, oh, I love this
Wow.
song. Cool lyrics for what they are. I mean, Joe Lynn Turner sounds really good, kind of bluesy, kind of a little AOR, but it's just a great sounding song. And I love that riff from Blackmore. It's really good when he's laying into the kind of the more bluesy side of things. So yeah, my number one pick is Jealous Lover by Rainbow.
Wow. Nice deep cut. That was on the well, it was like a B side or something, right? But then they put it on the final
It was a 12-inch
vinyl.
single
Right. Yeah.
for Jealous Lover. It was an
Mini, like a little
instrumental,
mini album.
yeah, a little mini
Yeah.
album.
Yeah.
Mhm. And then
Cool.
they put it on. I think I first heard it on
Final
the
vinyl.
final vinyl when I
Yeah.
got that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Cool.
that's a good pick. That's an obscure one too. Yeah, for sure. You sure you don't want to sing that one for the listeners out there?
Yeah.
All right, Tony, what do you
Thank
got
you,
for
though.
your top five?
Top five. Okay, so I'm gonna go with. I had to throw some John Sykes in here because I love John Sykes. I went with "Bad Boys" by Whitesnake. Just love that opening riff for that one. Just a great track. Uh, Number four, gonna visit one that you just spoke of, John. "Lay It Down" by Rat. Such a great riff. I mean, that's one of the coolest songs of the whole LA scene, if you
Yeah.
ask me. I mean, that riff combined with the rhythm, the beat that Bobby Blotzer's doing on the drums is very, very rhythmic. It's very kind of not just your regular drum beat that he could have thrown in it, and it just makes that song. It's just such a great song, best song Rad ever had, if you ask me. Number three, I'm gonna go. I got to throw some Van Halen in, and I almost picked Unchained because I love that, but I went with Mean Streets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just such a that's another just dark, heavy, menacing riff when you hear that one.
Uh-huh.
Number two, I'm going to go with Fast Way and Say What You Will. That's
Oh,
just a very unique type of riff. That da 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 da
Yeah.
da 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 da. It's
yeah.
just say what you will and you will. Fast Eddie definitely doesn't sound like anything he would have wrote for Motorhead. So he
Wow.
comes into play with this band and with Fast Way, and he's got this really cool track. Number one for me is going to be just an iconic metal song, and that's "Balls to the Walls" from Accept. I mean, when you hear that riff, you just stop what you're doing. It's just you got to start headbanging. I remember seeing the current lineup of Accept. They played at the M3 Rock Fest in Maryland a couple of years back, which is predominantly like all 80s,
Mhm.
what hair band type bands and stuff. And I remember a lot of people saying, well, "Accept that they're kind of heavy to be on here, and stuff." And a lot of people just don't really know that much about them. But I remember when they broke in to Balls to the Walls, I looked around and everybody was headbanging. I mean, it didn't matter if you don't know anything else by Accept, that song because if you watch Headbangers Ball, you saw that video in heavy
Yeah, yeah.
rotation.
Oh yeah.
You know that song. Everybody was just going nuts when they played that song.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah,
Great,
so
great
Balls to
pick.
the Wall. I've got a few honorable mentions. We can go back around if you
Okay.
want after you finish, John. John?
Okay. All right. Here's my 5 through 1. Number 5 for me is Slayer, Angel of Death. And I'm not going with the opening. I'm going with the part of the song when the intro drops and it does the dia 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 dia
Fat riff.
I love when like bands like Slayer when they're playing fast and then all of a sudden, boom, everything stops, and you've got that evil sounding riff, and the drums are doing
Totally.
like kind of like a half beat thing. And you could just picture the crowd, right? It's just like everybody just starts going crazy. I love it, love it. Number 4 for me is your number 1 pick, Tony, Balls to the Wall. I went to Wacken in 2010. Wacken, for those who may not know, is one of the biggest. I think it is the biggest metal festival in the world. It's like 100,000 plus people. Wacken is a small town in Germany that once a year that they have this festival. And Udo was the headliner on the one night, the ending night, actually, the final night. So there's multiple stages, but no one else is playing when the big headliners are on. So Udo is closing out the whole thing. And Udo played his set. He played a lot of his solo stuff. He played some Accept stuff. Left the stage, came back on, did like a 2 song encore, 2 or 3 song encore, didn't play Balls to the Wall, and he leaves the stage. And I'm thinking maybe he doesn't do Balls to the Wall. Maybe it's like too obvious. It's too associated with Accept. He just doesn't want to do it. He's off stage for a while. I mean, I'm talking like 5 minutes of nothing going on. Nobody comes out on the stage. All you hear is that opening riff. Dun, da, 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 dun, dun, dun. You've never heard Balls to the Wall until you've heard it with 100,000 Germans. It was just like everybody, I'm getting a shiver up my spine. Everybody just went bananas. And in the middle of the song, every time the whole, sit down, God, 100,000 people screaming that,
Yeah.
balls to the walls in that whole middle
Awesome.
section
Yeah.
where everything drops down and it's just balls to the walls. Everybody was like, really quietly saying it. So you got like 100,000 people, balls to the walls. And he dragged that whole section out and everything. So yeah, that song, that riff, that opening riff, every time I hear that opening riff, I think about that at Wacken, nighttime. If you've ever seen the bull thing that they had that blasts out the fire and everything. I mean, it was just like one of the coolest like metal experiences of my life. But that comes in at number 4. Number 3, man, is this an iconic riff, and this is just epic, and it just hits you as soon as it happens. This is one of those songs that they play like when you're getting ready to see a band in a club and they're playing music over the PA. When this song kicks in, everybody just sings along with the riff, and that's Heaven and Hell. It's epic, it's iconic, it's everything I love about heavy metal. Number 2 for me, Holy Wars, Punishment Due, Megadeth. Right after the little intro thing, the riff that comes after that, it's so tight. It's so like metal. It's just like right there. I absolutely love it. All right. And this was easy for me. The top 3, as soon as we said we were going to do this, I had my top 3. My number 1, maybe my favorite metal song of all time, definitely my favorite riff of all time, and it's the main riff to Diary of a Madman. The down, 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 down. Love that. I just saw LA Guns not that long ago, and they played all of Diary of a Madman for their intro music. And while it was playing, Tracy Guns was like you could sort of see him from where I was sitting. He was on the side of the stage with his guitar. And when that ending came up, he started playing along with it. And it was just like the coolest like thing. So I love that song. That riff is just an absolutely killer riff. So number 1 for me, Diary of a Madman. Okay, anybody got any honorable mentions? Anything they want to throw in that didn't make their list? Darren, you got any?
Yeah, I've got a few. I've got Dethroned Emperor by Celtic Frost, or Celtic Frost as they're going by now. Well, it's an iconic riff. I mean, it's heavy. I remember when that came out, Celtic Frost in general was just like one of the heaviest bands I had heard at that time. And then, of course, after I got into Celtic Frost and went back and checked out Hellhammer, and it was like melted my brain at how heavy that was. But it's just that real deep, rich guitar tone that Tom G. Warrior has, and the riff itself is it's melodic in a way where I mean it's almost similar to like a, and I hate to say it, but it's almost similar to like a Motley Crue riff or something, and it kind of almost has like a hair band kind of sound to it in the way that it's structured, but it is just so heavy. And the guitar tone that Ibanez, I guess he played an Ibanez Iceman, same guitar as Paul Stanley, but I don't know, man. He got this incredibly heavy tone out of that guitar. Um, and I just love that song. I love Celtic Frost, one of my all-time favorite, whatever you want to call them, thrash bands. I mean, I don't know. I guess you can kind of call them proto death metal, proto black metal, whatever. But that riff is just sick. It's just really heavy. So I got that. Got to get some Ozzy in here. I got Bark at the Moon, Jake's riff, awesome riff. Not one of my favorite albums, but there's two songs on that stand out for me. One, of course, is Bark at the Moon, and the other is Rock and Roll Rebel. It was like a toss up. Figured, well, either one of those two would definitely be an iconic 80s riff, but I went with Bark at the Moon as far as an honorable mention. And also likewise I had to get some Black Sabbath. So an honorable mention to Children of the Sea. That was the song that really got me into the Dio era of Sabbath. I was like hardcore Sabbath, Ozzy. Um, but after I had all the Ozzy Sabbath records, decided to check out the Dio Sabbath, and I bought Heaven and Hell, put it on. As soon as I heard Children of the Sea, it's undeniably great. Just such a great riff by Iommi. I also had Voodoo as a possible inclusion in my top 10, but Tony, you said it, so I took it off and I replaced it with something else. But so Voodoo maybe ranks a little bit higher. I just love the way that riff comes in on Mob Rules and the tone of Tony's guitar. But as far as like, I guess for me personally, the riff that really did it, like it made me a fan of the Dio era Sabbath, was Children of the Sea. So definitely got to give that an honorable mention. So three
Cool.
honorable mentions from me.
Cool. What do you got, Tony, for almost made the list?
Well, there's a couple things that got mentioned. Cold Sweat, Thin Lizzy, great riff, love that. And I picked for honorable mention too was Dethroned Emperor from Celtic Frost. Yeah, that's just such a evil, menacing riff. Just a good one. Had Straight Through the Heart from Dio, because I had to throw some Dio in there. Vivian. The Electric Eye by Judas Priest. The opening part's cool, but the da 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 da, that part, that's such a cool riff. An oddball one I had was Branded and Exiled by a band called Running Wild. Just a really cool riff on that one. And I had one that had mentioned Let It Go from Def Leppard, another great riff. And also Creeping Death from Metallica. The opening riff's cool, but when it kicks into the main riff of the song, that's just another great thrash riff.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a few. I mean, God, we could go forever. There's so many cool songs out there,
Yeah, I didn't my list, I try not to repeat anybody. I don't think I repeated anybody. So I just naturally left out a bunch of people. I didn't write any of them down, but like off the top of my head, I was thinking for Priest, Painkiller, Metal Gods, Breaking the Law. For Dio, I was thinking Stand Up and Shout. Metallica, I almost put Seek and Destroy on my list because that opening riff is, to me, it's like the bridge between the new wave of British heavy metal and thrash metal. It's like them taking the new wave of British heavy metal and twisting it around and sort of, making it their own thing. And who else? I'm looking around my room at some of my I could have put other Sabbath on there. Of course, somebody mentioned Voodoo, Mob Rules. I could have put other Ozzy things on there. Of course, I love Miracle Man. Like if I wanted to get into Zach era, Bark at the Moon. That's a good pick. Yeah. So, yep, those are some of
No
my honorable mentions.
AC/DC from anyone.
Yeah, I didn't. I was thinking
No, I know,
Hell's
right.
Bells, maybe. It's kind of funny. AC/DC, it's not
Shoot
that
the
they're not a
Thrill is a good one.
Shoot the Thrill.
Shoot the
That could have
Thrill
been
off of
one.
Black and Black.
Highway to Hell is iconic, you know.
79. That's
Yeah.
79 though. But
That's
yeah, it's
true.
funny. Kind of
That's not 80.
AC/DC is they don't quite play riffs the way
Back
other
in
bands
Black.
play riffs. You know, AC/DC kind of they are riffs, but they're not like riffs in a typical metal kind of Judas Priest, Iron Maiden. That was another one, Iron Maiden. I was thinking of Aces High, the beginning of Aces High and the beginning of the Trooper. But yeah, AC/DC, I thought about Highway to Hell, Shoot the Thrill. Oh, For Those About to Rock. I almost put for the intro to For Those About to Rock, even though it's kind of
Yeah.
like a single note little thing that he plays. It's still pretty iconic. But all right, I mentioned that Butch couldn't join us this week. So we'll take a second here and Butch is going to run down his 10 picks for his favorite riffs from the 80s right here.
Well, starting with number 10, I'm going to go with this album right here, Celtic Frost. And the song I love from here. Now, I had To Mega Theory on first, and then it was an adjustment at the time, you know, in the 80s for me, like going from Kiss and Motley Crue and Judas Priest and stuff like that to go into Celtic Frost was an adjustment for me because of the vocals and, you know, the rudimentary nature of the playing on some of this stuff. So, but once that album grew on me, I went and got the other records, and so I picked up Morbid Tales finally, and you know, I really like this record. And the song, my favorite like riff on this song is just so dirty and dark and kind of evil and sludgy is the main riff in Procreation of the Wicked. It's the riff, where is that? I wrote this down. It comes in around the 16-second mark. That's where the word initially, it's the lead into the verses, and he says just like it's so like just like almost you know, it's kind of like evil sounding, and it sounds like someone's like putting their finger on like a record to slow it down, and it's just like this whole vibe with that song. So that was that's the first one I picked. Procreation of the Wicked here. And then these aren't really like in order, but kind of. I went with there were a bunch I could have picked for Sabotage, and I ended up going with City Beneath the Surface. That verse riff in it is killer, and it's just it's kind of like Sabotage had this way sometimes of like writing riffs like this the verse riff in City Beneath the Surface, or the main riff in Power of the Night. You know, in some of their songs, like there was just like a way that Chris Oliva played things. It wasn't like a straightforward kind of thing. There was always like a kind of like a darkness to it. It was a little bit like maybe like doomy in a way without being doom. Like there was just like a that kind of vibe to the riffing. So I mean, this is a fast song, and these were like this is the songs like when I saw them live, like when they played a lot of this stuff still on the Hall of the Mountain King tour. This stuff just went over so great, and was so, you know, it just was so, they were so unique in their riffing style and the way that John sang, and just the verse riff on this is killer. And then we'll go with my next one. I don't have too many that are like straight up fast, but like one of them is the main riff in Stand Up and Shout from Holy Diver. Like it's killer. It sticks in my head. Like I could have picked Holy Diver from here. That's the iconic one. I mean, that and Rainbow in the Dark kind of like are the riffs that people know. Holy Diver is definitely like the one that really, you know, is just the most known of his solo stuff. But like I love Stand Up and Shout, like just the interplay with the band, and you know, they use it so much in the song, and he just alters what he's singing like over top of it. Love it. Great song. Probably my favorite off this record. Probably my favorite thing that they did like as the Dio band. Um, then let's go here with War Machine from Creatures of the Night. Now, not my favorite song from the record. Um, I don't even know if I'd have it in my top 15 of their 80s stuff, but it is a great song. I mean, I'm a Kiss apologist, so for me to say it's not in the top, that's not saying much, saying it's not in the, but the riff is freaking amazing. I mean, as far as like, there was a time period like at the beginning of their career where a lot of the songs were more, they had a lot of stuff that was real riff based, stuff like She and Parasite and Watching You and songs like that. And like they kind of got away from that a little bit as they got a little bit more commercial. It wasn't so much based around these big riffs. And then you have like War Machine, which is really the 80s version of God of Thunder. I mean, just total metal, like slow, like grinding, like great riff. Perfect Gene song, fits his personality perfectly, like the mood of it. The whole thing about it is killer. So for that, we'll go with that one. What we got here? What's next? So the next, as a big Doom fan, it's an embarrassment of riches, like to pick from. I don't even know if that's the right phrase, but there's a lot you could pick from. But I went with Pray for the Dead from this, and the riff I'm going with on this one is the verse riff. It starts around the 47-second mark. It's between the 47-second mark and the minute 24 mark. Just that boom, doo 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 doo, bo doo 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 doo, boo doo 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 doo, boom doo. Just so like heavy, and it just really like just every time I hear it, like it just like makes the hair on my arms stand up, just like a killer, like just full on Doom riff. Like that for a band that had a ton of great riffs. It's fairly simple, but it's just so effective. It just fits the song completely. And for Doom, it's slow, and it's just like it's got the Sabbathy vibe to it, and just a killer riff on that song. And then sticking with the Sabbath motif, again, there's a ton of great riffs on this album. Like the riff when falling off the edge of the world kicks in is killer. The riff in Voodoo is cool, but the one that like I really love on the record is Country Girl. Like it's not the most serious song in the world, but just that riff is so catchy, and it's just like for me it keeps my attention, even though is used so much in the song. But great riff. An underrated song in a lot of ways. But the people that do love the song. I mean, I love Country Girl. It was cool too, finally getting that when they put out that live at the Hammersmith album that Rhino put out, that a live version of Country Girl was on. I'm like, oh, this is cool to hear it live. Great song. And then let's see, where am I going next? I had a hard time with these guys because I forget what the exact quote is, but there was a quote that Diamond Head packed more riffs into one song than you would find on like a full Sabbath album or the first 6 Sabbath albums in total. It's an exaggeration, obviously, but I mean, Tyler was a riff machine. So there was my initial impulse was to go with Streets of Gold, which is a cool riff. I mean, but then all those songs like have great riffs. Sucking My Love has great riffs in it. Helpless has great riffs. But I went with it's predictable maybe, but I went with Am I Evil on here, and the riff that I love the most in this song is just that main riff. It's the riff that sailed 1,000 ships. I mean, it's the basis for a lot of stuff that followed. I mean, you can hear the through line in thrash bands and doom metal bands. I mean, it's all, their influence is all over the place. I mean, they never made it big, but their influence is like outweighs like the success that they had. And Am I Evil, obviously more people were. I was became aware of it through Metallica, like most of us did. But like you know, the original is phenomenal. So, Am I Evil? That's my next one. And then going back to Doom, I wish I wouldn't have sold this record. I sold this vinyl. I don't know what caused me to do it, other than I guess I needed money at the time, and so I had the original um, edition of the vinyl edition of the Pentagram. It was just a self-titled Pentagram record that when Peaceville put it back out, they called it Relentless. Um, and that's like the song I went with on here. The riff I'm talking about is the verse riff. It starts at 38-second mark, goes to the 1 minute 7 seconds mark, but it, you know, repeats itself during the verses. Tremendous main riff in this song. An example of a doom band that the riff is doomy, but it's like it's not. This is not like a slow, like grindy kind of song like All Your Sins or The Ghoul, like which were other contenders. But Relentless has been my favorite Pentagram song forever. But the main riff on here, godly. I mean, the whole song has riff after riff is great. And in Pentagram, I mean, all the riffs on these records, these 80s records, I think have gotten forgotten about a little bit in the wake of the success of those, you know, those First Days Here releases, the 70s stuff. But this is where it's at for me, is the Victor Griffin, Bobby Liebling, you know, the Death Row era of the band. I mean, this is where the best, heaviest riffs are, as far as I'm concerned. So Relentless, from Relentless, the first. I don't think they have. I wonder if they have the original album cover in here. They do. Not there. And this, I mean, I saw this. I actually got this record for when I got it. I got it for a freaking $1 at a record show, in great shape. I mean, and it's one of those records I kicked myself for selling at the time. I wish I still had it. You'd pay hundreds for it now. But I mean, look at that. Look at those dudes. Evil looking. Great bands. One of the best. Okay, moving right along. One of the few, like this is like the main, the only other thrash entry on the chart. Again, there are a ton of great thrash riffs out there. I could have picked several from this album that stood out. This is from the Rain and Blood record. There are several riffs in Angel of Death that I love. I mean, that opening riff is killer. The riff in the middle is phenomenal when it slows down and goes into that, you know, pounding kind of thing. But my favorite riff off here, and one of my favorite riffs of all time, is the verse riff for Postmortem. That is just like tremendous, like just a total like mid-tempo, like bang your head, like groove isn't the right word, but it does have kind of like just a groove to it that when it kicks into it, it's just phenomenal. It's long been one of my favorite riffs. If I listen to this record and you know, if I have it on in the car at a certain volume, when that song comes on and I know I'm coming up to the riff, I turn it up like right before the riff comes, and I just start like banging in the car. I love this song. We actually, when back in the days when I was at Argus, we actually covered this. I think we played it live twice. I wish we would have done it more. It was always fun to sing. This one, in South of Heaven, is great from that record. And again, there are a lot of cool riffs on these Slayer records. I love the main riffs in the riffs in Metal Storm, Face the Slayer from the Show No Mercy record are great too. That was on the short list, but Postmortem is like godly riff to me. I think it's the best riffing on this album. So the last thing I went with, this is not only like, I guess it's I don't know if it's my favorite riff out of all of these, but it's certainly like, in a grand scheme of things, it's probably my favorite moment in heavy metal of all time, coming into this riff in this song. And it's on the Power Slave record, and it's in Rhyme the Ancient Mariner. And the part I'm talking about is the middle section after It's All Mellow. And it's from the 901 mark to the 1007 mark. But it's right after, it's that riff that comes in after Bruce is like, then down and falls comes the, he screams the, it's just, you hear it slowly fades up, and they're just that whole section. That riff is just like, again, it's one of those ones that, like, I'm preparing, he's singing that over that part in the middle, and I know it's coming. I just, like, as soon as that riff kicks in, I'm like, and turn it up. Just that is such a freaking pounder of a riff. I mean, there's great riffs in the song, but that section in particular is just like so powerful to me. Like, it literally, like, it gives me goosebumps every damn time. Like, it still does to this day. There are certain songs over the years that do that to me, whether they're metal or otherwise. There's segues in songs that just, like, do something like that. They click with me in a way that's just like amazing, and gives me chills. And for something to do that all these years later, I mean, I first begged my stepfather to buy this for me when I was, I don't know, I must have been 13 at the time. I used the "you never buy me anything" tactic on him. It was at a record store, and we were in some record store in Quakertown, and I'm like, I saw the album, and I'm like, I had the cassette. I'm like, "You never buy me." I must have said it like literally like 8 or 9 times. I said it, and he just like took it and bought it. Hate bought it for me. So, but I love "Rhyme of the Ancient Mariners." Like, in my top 3 Maiden songs, it's probably like my second favorite. But in that section of the song is like a big part why I just love that riff. And so yeah, I mean, that's my main 10. I had some. Is that just more like a little harmony or like a little melody or something? But some of the other ones that I had, just to give you an idea, like the main riff in Saxon's "Denim and Leather," I love that. There's just a catchiness to it. It's just like a doom 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 doom. Just love that in that song. Again, Saxon has a lot of. I could have "Princess of the Night" is great. Speaking of "Princess of the Night," I have it accept "Princess of the Dawn." And you'd figure "Balls to the Wall" would be the one that everyone knows and probably most people would pick. But "Princess of the Dawn" is so simple, but it just, the mood of it just totally fits that. I just love that the mood of that song, and it's, that riff is what brings it to it. I had I love the chorus and "Flick of the Switch" by AC/DC. I said "Streets of Gold" by Diamond Head before. The verse in "Electric Eye," phenomenal. All of "Beyond the Black." I was gonna have this song on my list, and I honestly couldn't narrow it down to which section I would have picked. I love the beginning. I love when it goes into the verse, and then there's that whole middle section, like, where there are versions of that main riff and where it speeds up, and it's just like that whole middle section is kind of like a riff smorgasbord. So Metal Churches Beyond the Black, Master Puppets I had on here. Again, iconic. And not just that main riff coming into it, but like a lot of the riffs in the song are just killer. Stay Clean by Motorhead, just that kind of dirty, kind of like rock and roll vibe that has, that I liked when they would break into that kind of like that vibe. Swords and Tequila by Riot, and then I had Power the Night. I talked about that earlier, but those are some of the other ones that I had mixed in there. It's hard for me to talk, like riffing is like, I know riffs when I hear them that I really like, and it's just like sometimes it's like hard to explain why, what it is about them, because it's just like a feeling that I get from, there's like a power to it. Like it is a, that like the riffing, like to me when I hear like a riff, I think when think of riff, I think of like kind of power in a way. And when I think of like, other bands, they maybe build more around melodies and stuff, and that's more of an emotional kind of vibe. This is more of like a gut level kind of thing. Like riffs are in metal just usually just like, hit you over the head, hit you in the gut. And those are some of my favorites.
Okay, that was Butch and his picks. So you got all of our picks now. We had a few overlapping things, not as many overlapping things as I thought, because like you said, there's just so many riffs to pick from. It's almost like, gosh, where do you start? So I think we're going to have another episode where maybe we do our 10 favorite heavy riffs from the 70s. That would be fun. So yeah, there's going to be more of this. Let us know what you think of our picks. Let us know what some of your picks would be for your favorite riffs from the 80s. Let us know down below, and we'll see you at the next Dudes Talking Metal.